This is going to be a very simple video just to help the newbies who really want to migrate. On this video I will tell you the basics to understand and enjoy using Linux, so let's start. The first step, step 0, is find a reason. This is actually very important. Before anything else, it is important to have a reason to migrate. Most problems faced in migrating to Linux, or any other system, comes from a lack of will and focus. It comes from a lack of a reason to migrate on the first place. I always compare systems migration with migration from one country to the next. It is a different culture, with different values and ways to do things. If you don't think it is for you to change anything about the way you do things, then just don't migrate. Seriously. You should migrate if and only if you understand the pros and cons and are curious to experience something at least a little bit different. If you want to move somewhere else and expect to find the same culture and habits, you are just gonna get frustrated. Just stay where you are. Do you really value privacy, control, freedom? Then yes, these are good reasons to migrate. But if you need all of your multiplayer games working or your entire ecosystem with the same apps, stay away. If you just want to try different things because someone said you should do it, and you have no pleasure to face challenges, it will be like spending thousands of dollars on a ticket to a place you don't even want to speak the language, don't like the culture, and for sure you ain't gonna have a good time. Be warned, you will not have a good experience this way. Remember, if you have no destination you will just get lost. Then there is step 1, understand what Linux is and what isn't. I've lost count of how many times I've had to respond to a video or comment from someone saying things like, I tried this exact thing on Linux, the same way I did my entire life on Windows, and it didn't work. Linux is not a Windows replacement or knockoff. Let me repeat, Linux is not a replacement or knockoff of Windows. Linux is a technology that could be used pretty much anywhere. Just because it could be used for basically everything, it doesn't mean you should be using it for everything. Linux is a Unix-like system by nature. It is developed based on manuals and documentation, so if you expect drag and drop or next your way on Linux, you are gonna have a bad time. I always recommend newcomers to watch Linux is Not Windows: Why Windows Power Users Are So Hard to Teach by Joe Collins to get the idea. Now let's go to step 2, start from scratch and RTFM. Just like in Joe Collins' video, it's easier to teach something to someone who doesn't know anything than to teach someone who thinks they know. Anytime you use a new system, just assume you don't know what you are doing and search everything before doing something stupid. I can't count how many times I saw people breaking Linux trying to do the same things they did on Windows. There is this concept I've developed with some friends who use Linux. We noticed a cycle that repeats itself every time we talk about Linux. We call it the cycle of frustration. First, try to do something way beyond your skills assuming you know what must be done. Then, fail and ask others to help you to do something wrong and stupid. And then, blame the community for being toxic and not helpful. It sounds familiar? Then, what you should know. First, you need to know that Linux is offered through distributions, or distros. Each distribution chooses how to distribute things. Easy to understand, ain't it? Some like to distribute all types of software, others just the basics. Some want to be stable, others just want to be bleeding edge. Some have support for proprietary things, others don't. Some are made for new users, like Linux Mint. Some are made for advanced users, like Arch or Gentoo. So, before searching videos on YouTube to install something, start by looking the website for your distribution for package availability and how to do things. At the end of the day, my go-to recommendation for new users is Linux Mint with the Cinnamon interface. Now let's go to step 3, stop using programs and start using functions. Not so long ago I saw someone complaining they couldn't migrate to Linux cause they couldn't find a very specific and abandoned music player native for Linux. If you need a specific application just to listen to a damn song, then just don't migrate. If we are talking about a work tool, which depends on expertise, okay, it is understandable. But if you expect a native program or a one-to-one replacement of everything on your system, that's just stupid. Don't look for foobar, look for a music player. Don't look for Nero, look for a CD, DVD burner. Remember, you don't need Microsoft Office just to write a text. Wanting to change systems and keep using the exact same programs is like wanting to go to another country and speaking the exact same language. A lot of times, this is just silly. Alternative to .NET can help you find alternatives for things you need. Now a complementary step, but a very important one. Step 3.5. Remember that Linux don't use the concept of programs, it uses packages. This is a very common problem for newbie users. When they want to install something, they go to a website, they try to download a quote-unquote program and then run it, the same way they do on Windows. Don't do that. You must know, you don't install programs on Linux. What you do is give packages to the installer and then the system install them for you. So before going to websites trying to download things, you should start by searching on the software manager of your distribution. Searching for install wizards and clicking next is a very good way to break your system. So, remember, do you want something? Your distribution probably have a software manager or at least a website just to help you search available packages. If the software you want isn't there, search the package on FlatHub. If you can't find it there, then and only then you can search on the developer's website for app image, which is like a .dmg file for Mac. And please don't run random scripts you don't know what is doing. Got it? Okay. Step 4. No requirements or dual boots, just embrace what is new. Maybe this is the most important step. It is common for newbies to recommend to other newbies to use dual boot. Don't. If you are not an advanced user, messing with partitions, file systems and bootloaders is something you should stay away. You can very easily break both systems and lose all of your data. Do you have an old computer? Yeah, just install Linux there and start using as your main machine. A big mistake people make is keep trying to adapt their workflow without even knowing the system first. Go read emails, listen to music, watch videos, play some Steam games that run with Proton. Don't start with anything complex, just simple stuff to get used to how things work and how they are different. If you are just starting out, play with the system as it is, try different themes. It is stupid to limit your new system to exactly the same use you had before. And don't start demanding anything from the system. Don't start searching for crutches to go back to your old workflow. Understand how things work at the system level first. As I replied to Garrett before, if you start with "Oh, I'm a newbie, and I want to migrate to Linux on a weekend and keep doing the exact same editing work that I did on the Mac, and I've already selected the software that I have to use on Pop OS." If you are just starting to use something new, the last thing you should have is requirements. Use what you have, see how it works. The same way you won't migrate to France and take your house with you, you won't migrate to Linux and take your old habits with you. Linux can't be your backup, your safe haven if Microsoft keep destroying Windows. Stop looking for problems and start looking for alternatives and new ways to use your computer. Remember that this is a journey and not a destination. Don't look for ways to transfer your workflow to Linux. Use Linux as is and create your optimal workflow there. You have two paths ahead of you. You can try to turn Linux into your new old Windows or simply use Linux and its tools to do the things you actually need. Can't say this enough, no operating system will be just a layer to put your old stuff on top of it. The people who do well with Linux are the ones who ignore what they can't do and enjoy what they can do now. Step 5 is remember that Linux isn't the product. What do I mean by that? A lot of users come to Linux, and then when something doesn't work, they go to a forum and start saying how things aren't working and demanding help, but if you haven't paid for support, no one owes you support. Windows and Mac are systems that do things automatically for you, and they pick the average response for everything. Like I've said before, Linux is a Unix-like system, and what I mean by that is that the user space here is sacred. The difference between a Unix-like system and a non-Unix-like system is that you can put a Unix-like system on a room for 10 years, and after 10 long years the computer will be the exact same way you left it there. Try to leave Windows alone for a day without Microsoft trying to install any type of crap in your system. If there is a very specific thing you can possibly change to your specific needs, that's not a bug, my friend, that's a feature. And that's a very big reason why a lot of users love Arch Linux, and one of the reasons Valve picked Arch as a base for Steam OS. I am not saying you should always do that. However, What I am saying is that you either start editing .files or just leave the system as is. If you are gonna use a forum to say how Linux should be more like Windows thinking you know things more than us, you ain't gonna make any friends, I tell you that much.